I worked for the family business for 12 years, but my dad gave it to my sister and her fiancé. Then he begged for help when they abandoned him. I, a 36-year-old woman, was fired from the firm that my father had started only 8 months before. For background, I had been with the family firm for nearly 12 years. My grandfather on my father's side created a jewelry business that we own. It was passed down to my father, and I assumed it would come to me next. After all, I am the older sister and have been interested in business since I was a teenager. My father always told me that he expected me to someday take over the firm. My sister, 33, never seemed interested in a profession. She only wanted to marry and have kids. So if Dad was going to have an heir to the company, it was supposed to be me. This expectation was always taken for granted. There was no formal documentation, but I suppose I should have planned for anything similar. I had been my father's personal assistant for 12 years. I even abandoned my first job after only 2 years because I wanted to gain real-world experience before joining my father. I did not want to come across as entitled, however. I left my job when my father asked me to start working for him. Despite everything I had done, I was kicked out of the firm in favor of my sister and her tremendously wealthy fiancé. My sister hadn't even been a member of the family for the previous 15 years. She made a few bad decisions, and my parents cut her off shortly after she turned 18. She announced that she would not attend college and instead wanted to explore and discover herself. That did not sit well with my parents. They offered her an ultimatum: either attend college or leave. Being the type of person she is, she opted to leave and live with her partner at the time. They ended their relationship after only 6 months together. Then she showed up at our door pleading to be allowed back into the family. Before she left, she told my parents many terrible things, such as how she no longer needed them and how she would be better off without a family like ours. She also said we were not good enough for her because her boyfriend's family had a much better financial situation. She insulted and humiliated us before going away. When she returned, my father informed her that the terms he had imposed previously remained in effect. If she wanted to come back, she would have to go to college and earn a degree, regardless of what she chose. Otherwise, she could stay away. My sister attempted to argue and fight her way back into the family, but my father was resolute. She chose to depart again, vowing never to return. For the next 15 years, we only saw her at family gatherings and never communicated with her otherwise. We discovered information about her life through other relatives because she refused to speak with us directly. My mother and I attempted to contact her several times, but because we were on good terms with my father, she refused to speak with us. To her credit, she kept her word and never returned until my father chose to reach out to her again. During that period, she sorted out her life. She never attended college since she wasn't interested. Instead, she lived with a friend for a period, acquired a job, and began working to support the life she desired. I believe that event helped her mature significantly. She changed jobs frequently, but for the past few years, she had worked at an advertising agency. Our family kept track of her life through other relatives, and she knew about us as well, thanks to the same family. My father became very ill about a year ago, and we were on the verge of losing him due to heart failure. The cardiologist informed us that his condition was serious and that he needed to make significant lifestyle changes. During this health scare, my father decided it was time to contact my sister and reconcile their relationship. By this point, my sister had matured significantly over the previous 15 years, and she finally agreed to rejoin the family. She came to see us alone, and we didn't chat much about her life because we were too busy reminiscing about the past. She didn't want to make it all about herself, so she didn't reveal anything about what she had been up to. The information we didn't obtain from her came from our relatives. We knew how she was doing professionally, but not much about her personal life. Anyway, she seemed pleased to be back, and we were all focused on the reconciliation of father and daughter. It was a really emotional reunion, and I was delighted at the time, not knowing what would happen next. When she returned to see us for the second time, she brought her fiancé, which surprised everyone. She informed us that they had been dating for 3 years and were only recently engaged. None of us in the family knew about it. We didn't find out through our usual channels. They had kept it under wraps. The flow of information was not one-sided. Thanks to our relatives, she knew my father had some health issues, but she had no idea how serious they were. That is why she hadn't visited us sooner. She felt it was inappropriate to announce her engagement at that time. Now that everything had cooled down, she decided it was time to introduce him to the family. He appeared to be a pleasant guy, and I could tell he was wealthy. His clothes, watch, and shoes were all costly. I felt glad for my sister because it seemed that she had finally found someone who met her expectations. He was financially secure, had a clear vision for his life, and had his future planned out. After speaking with both of them, we discovered that her fiancé, like her first boyfriend, was the son of a wealthy man who operated a fast food franchise. Unlike her first relationship, I was truly thrilled for her and complimented both of them. However, I never expected my father or even my sister and her fiancé to do what they did next. After only 3 weeks of knowing him, my father believed it was best if they took over the family business. He contacted me one morning and asked me to come home so we could chat about something. I was at work running everything since my father's heart health had deteriorated, and I was essentially the boss at that point. Even though he hadn't officially resigned, I knew retirement was imminent, and I was convinced that I would be the next in line to take over as CEO. But that day altered everything. Suddenly, my sister and her fiancé were in the running to take over the business I had been running for years. When I arrived at my parents' house, my sister and her fiancé were not present, but my parents were, and they looked grim. After some casual chat, my father dropped the bombshell. I initially assumed he was joking, but when I learned he was serious, I couldn't believe it. When I inquired why he would make such a radical decision after just 3 weeks of knowing him, he said he had reasons but refused to discuss them. After much fighting, Dad finally revealed that he thought my sister and her fiancé would be better at operating the firm than I was. The cherry on top was that he thought gifting them the business would be a welcome gesture to bring them back into the family, as they were about to begin a new chapter by getting married. He thought this would be their wedding gift. I attempted to persuade him that this was a terrible idea. A wedding gift doesn't have to be the size of an entire business simply because the guy appeared wealthy. Additionally, my father had always told me that when he retired I would inherit the firm. I had built my entire life around that expectation, and now he was taking it away from me to give to individuals who had been out of our lives for 15 years. I tried to tell him that maybe he could make us business partners and bargained with him because we were talking about my future. But my father was adamant that it would be better if they took over. He contended that because my sister's fiancé's father had previously established a successful business, they would be able to grow our jewelry business twice as quickly as I could. I begged him for just one opportunity, but he wouldn't listen. I was heartbroken, not just because I was losing something so important, but also because I had dedicated 12 years of my life to the business, only to wind up with nothing. Worse, I still hadn't won my father's respect. If he had truly recognized the time and effort I had put into the firm, that was the day I resolved to cut all ties with my family because I had nothing else to say to them. I had hoped my sister would fight for me, but she also let me down. She and her fiancé eagerly received the so-called wedding gift, which was effectively my life's work. My sister knew I had always aspired to take over the family business after my father retired. I had talked about it nonstop since I was 13. She knew exactly what she was doing when she took that gift. She was snatching my dreams and transforming them into her own. To make matters worse, she took to social media to thank our parents for the magnificent wedding gift and used the post to announce her engagement. The most upsetting aspect was that no one from the family contacted me afterward. When I left my father's house, it felt as if everyone had stopped caring about me. I felt used, and it appeared that the 12 years I had spent in the business had been completely wasted. Fortunately, I had enough savings to fall back on. For the following few months I did nothing except try to put my life back together. Everything had fallen apart. That happened 8 months ago. Since then I began therapy because I could feel myself slipping into depression and knew I wanted to treat it before it worsened. Seeing my sister's social media post made me nauseous, so I blocked her. I also informed my relatives that I was no longer in contact with my family and did not want to hear anything about them, no matter how important the news. They followed my wishes and kept everything a secret from me. As a result, I had no idea that my father's health had been slowly declining over the previous few months. My sister and her fiancé seemed unconcerned about it. I only found out a week ago when my father contacted me from the hospital. He informed me that he had suffered a cardiac arrest in the middle of the night and asked me to come see him. Because I had banned his number, he called me using someone else's phone. I felt awful for a moment, but then I remembered what he had done to me 8 months before, and the remorse subsided slightly. After that phone call, I promised to meet him immediately. I dropped everything and headed to the hospital. When I arrived, my mother and father were present, but my sister and her fiancé were nowhere to be found. I found this perplexing because I assumed they were close, especially since they ran the family business. I couldn't help but ask my parents where my sister and her fiancé were. With great regret, my father informed me that they had both claimed to be too busy to come. I was shocked. Running the business for 12 years taught me that it was a profitable venture that almost ran itself. Unless there was a serious catastrophe, there was no reason to be at work all the time. That's how it worked when I was in control. I couldn't say how things were going under their control, but when my father said they were too busy to see him, I inquired whether they had paid him any visits since his heart attack. He admitted they had not. He had contacted them, but they had only texted back, stating they were too busy and would come after he was discharged. These details astounded me, and I could tell my father recognized he had made a huge mistake in handing over the reins of the firm to my sister and her fiancé. He explained that one of the main reasons he called was to apologize for what he had done. He stated that he felt guilty and sorry for pushing me out of the firm despite all my hard work and effort. Now he wanted to make things right by inviting me back into the family and the business. He described how heartbroken he was when my sister and her fiancé did not arrive at the hospital. He realized that they didn't care about him in the same way that he cared for them. He also informed me that this was not the first time they had refused to show up for him. They had become increasingly estranged in recent months. After he handed over the firm, their visits grew less frequent. They used to come every other day to check on him when his health began to deteriorate, but now they claimed they were too busy with work to come by. This did not sit well with him or me because we both knew no one is ever that busy. It wouldn't have been difficult for them to take an hour out of their day, especially given they lived just a few blocks away from my parents' house. My father had said nothing at the moment, but they had crossed a line, and he could no longer take their contempt. He wanted to reclaim his firm and give it to the person who actually deserved it, me. We discussed everything in the hospital room, and he formally invited me back into the firm. I was overjoyed. My father apologized for everything, and while I wasn't fully over it, I forgave him since gaining back what I had worked for meant everything to me. If forgiving my father was the price I was willing to pay, I accepted it. The difficulty now is that my father had previously discussed this with my sister. He informed her he wanted her to leave the business because he had discovered that while he had always cared for her, she had never been there for him. He couldn't stand the disrespect any longer, so he resolved to reclaim the company and give it to the rightful owner, me. He told her that they would have to look after themselves. Unsurprisingly, my sister was upset. For whatever reason, she blamed me for everything. She contacted me this morning and lashed out, accusing me of being a horrible person, and said she couldn't believe I would be so rude to her. I'm not really sure why she's acting so crazily. I think there's something we don't know, but she's acting as if she's lost everything and it's all my fault. The reality is I believe this is her own fault. She chose not to see our father after he suffered a cardiac arrest, which is a dangerous situation. She could have taken time off work to visit him. She was the one acting selfishly, and now I'm receiving what I've always deserved. 8 months ago, she had no trouble receiving a present she knew she didn't deserve. So why should I turn my back on something I actually deserve? She was devastated, and I tried to console her, but she hung up mid-sentence. Now I'm wondering if I'm the bad guy here. I feel like I'm constantly taking the blame, and I'm fatigued. Am I a jerk for allowing my father to ask my sister and her fiant to leave the family business so that I could retake it? Update. Thank you all very much for your responses. I felt I didn't deserve my sister's criticism, but hearing it from you has reassured me. If people who know nothing about our lives believe I deserve the business, I have nothing further to say in my defense. I don't think I have to either. It's been a few days since I last spoke with my sister, and I haven't heard back. The good news is that she hasn't blocked me on any platform, so I suppose that's a good indication. I can't shake the notion that there's more going on than she's admitting. I find it difficult to imagine that someone with a wealthy fiant would act this way simply because they lost control of our firm. I believe not everything is as it appears with her fiant. Some of you inquired about this in the comments section of the original piece, but I did not address it since I did not believe it was important at the time. Now, however, I assume her fiant's family is struggling financially. According to what I've heard, his father's company has suffered considerable losses over the last year and has been unable to recover. I believe my sister and her fiance saw our family business as an opportunity to sneak in and take over as a backup plan. I still don't understand why my sister reacted so strongly when she realized I was being allowed to rejoin the company and she was being asked to step down. If her fiance's family was still financially secure, she wouldn't have to be concerned. However, she was distraught, and something about the situation did not make sense. I have a hunch she will tell the truth shortly. Fortunately, my father never signed any agreements or contracts that would have legally passed the firm to my sister and her fiance. That would have been disastrous. He remained CEO the entire time, with them reporting to him in the same position I had held. He had been educating them to take over, but it is now evident that this will not happen. I spoke with my father, who informed me that my sister is quite sad, but he cannot afford to worry about her sentiments right now. His primary objective is to transfer the business to me so that I can take control and manage everything. He's already working with a lawyer to create the required documentation. Update. In the days following my father's hospitalization, a strange calm settled over me. It felt surreal to be back in the family business after everything that had happened. The weight of the past 8 months, filled with betrayal and heartache, began to lift slightly. Yet, with this newfound sense of clarity came an unsettling uncertainty about my sister's reaction. While I worked tirelessly to immerse myself back into the firm, my father took a more hands-on approach, sharing his vision for its future with me. We spent late nights in his hospital room discussing ideas and plans, reigniting the spark we once shared. It was both exhilarating and bittersweet. I had longed for this collaboration, yet the path to get here had been paved with pain. Meanwhile, my sister seemed to fade into the background. I had expected an explosive confrontation, or at least a heated conversation, but instead, days turned into a week, and she didn't reach out. I found myself refreshing my phone incessantly, waiting for a message that never came. Part of me hoped she would come to her senses and apologize, while another part feared that our bond had been irreparably shattered. As I delved back into my role at the company, I realized how much I had missed at the intricate designs, the delicate craftsmanship. I poured myself into work, often staying late to oversee operations, to touch base with the team, and to ensure the quality of our products. The atmosphere felt different now. My colleagues seemed relieved to have me back, their spirits lifting as I navigated decisions and offered guidance. There was a sense of stability that had been missing since my father's health had declined. My sister's absence was palpable in the office. I could almost hear her laughter, the way she used to bring lightness to the room even when tensions ran high. Now there was a void, and it gnawed at me. I wanted to reach out, but I couldn't bring myself to be the first one to break the silence. Then one afternoon, while I was reviewing designs for a new collection, my phone buzzed. It was a message from my mother. She wanted to meet. My heart raced. I was nervous about what she might say. Would she defend my sister? Would she try to convince me to give her another chance? When I arrived at the cafe, I spotted her sitting at a corner table, her expression unreadable. We exchanged pleasantries, but the atmosphere was thick with unspoken words. Finally, she broke the silence. "I'm proud of you," she said softly. "Your father and I have seen how hard you've worked to keep the business going. You deserve this." Her words felt like a balm, yet I couldn't shake the unease I felt about my sister. "What about her?" I asked. "Is she okay?" My mother sighed, looking down at her coffee. "She's struggling. Honey, I know she messed up. Did she ever think of what she was doing to me, what she took from me?" I replied, my voice rising. It felt like she wanted to erase everything I'd built. "I understand that truly, but she's lost too." She believed she could finally step up. "I don't think she's doing well. It's hard for me to watch." A wave of guilt washed over me. I had worked so hard to reclaim what was rightfully mine, yet the thought of my sister suffering pierced through my resolve. "Maybe I should reach out," I suggested hesitantly. My mother shook her head. "Give her time." After our meeting, I returned home feeling conflicted. The lines between right and wrong had blurred. I didn't want to become the person who held grudges or reveled in someone else's misfortune, but I also felt betrayed. It was a delicate balance, one I had never expected to navigate. Over the next few weeks, my father's health improved. He was discharged from the hospital, and we began to make plans for the future. He seemed invigorated, passionate about the changes we could implement at the firm. We discussed fresh marketing strategies, new product lines, and ways to reestablish our brand. It felt like we were on the brink of something exciting. Yet, despite the joy of my father's recovery and my return to the business, my sister lingered in the back of my mind. I found myself searching social media for any signs of her, but she had gone dark. The silence was deafening. Then, one evening, as I was leaving the office, my phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my sister. "Can we talk?" My heart raced. I stared at the screen, uncertain of how to respond. I took a deep breath and typed back, "Yes, I'd like that." We agreed to meet at a park near our childhood home, a place that held memories of laughter and sisterly bonding. As I walked toward the park, I felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. What would she say? Would this be a confrontation, or could we find a way to mend the rift between us? When I spotted her sitting on a bench, my heart sank. She looked different, her face was drawn, and her eyes were puffy as if she had been crying. I approached slowly, unsure of what to expect. "Hey," I said softly, sitting down beside her. "Hey," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our history hanging between us. Finally she spoke. "I'm sorry for everything. I never meant for it to go this far," I thought. My heart ached at her vulnerability. You hurt me, you knew what I wanted and you took it away. I was selfish, she admitted, tears spilling down her cheeks. I thought if I came back into the family, I could prove myself I was wrong, and I'm so sorry for what I did to you. I can't believe I thought taking over the business was a good idea. I see that now. I nodded, feeling a mixture of anger and empathy. It's not just about the business, it's about our family. You were gone for so long. I don't want to lose that connection again. I know, she replied, wiping her tears. I've missed you, and I've missed our family. I can't change what happened, but I want to make things right. I want us to be sisters again. As she spoke, I felt the walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. This was the sister, I remember, the one who could bring joy even in the darkest moments. I want that too, I said, my voice breaking. But it's going to take time. I understand. I'll give you all the time you need, she replied, her voice steadier now. I just want to be a part of your life again. We talked for hours that evening, slowly unraveling the threads of our past and weaving them back together. We reminisced about childhood memories, shared our fears, and even laughed at the absurdity of some of our childhood antics. It was a slow process, but as the sun set, I felt hope begin to bloom. After that day, our relationship began to heal. My sister didn't rush back into the business. Instead, she offered to help in smaller ways, organizing events, connecting with vendors, and using her marketing skills to promote our brand. It was a gradual reintroduction, and I appreciated the space it provided. As we moved forward, my father's health continued to improve, and he became more involved in the business once again. He expressed pride in our reconciliation, reminding us how vital family ties are, especially during difficult times. Together, we began to redefine our roles within the company, and for the first time in a long while, the atmosphere felt warm and collaborative. My sister brought fresh ideas and energy, and I was grateful for her support. The wounds of the past were still there, but they no longer defined us. Then, one day, as we were finalizing plans for an upcoming launch, my father called us into his office. I have something to discuss with you both, he said, his tone serious yet filled with warmth. We exchanged glances, wondering what could be on his mind. I want to create a legacy for this family, he began, something that honors our history, but also looks forward to the future. He explained his vision of establishing a foundation to support young artists and aspiring entrepreneurs in the jewelry industry. It would be a way to give back, ensuring that the family legacy extended beyond our business. Both my sister and I were taken aback. "Dad, that's incredible!" I exclaimed. "We could host workshops, offer scholarships, and mentor young talents." My sister nodded, her eyes lighting up. "We could involve the local community and really make a difference." The three of us sat together, brainstorming ideas for the foundation. As we talked, I felt a sense of unity growing between us, a feeling that hadn't been there for a long time. It was exhilarating to think that we could create something meaningful together, something that would outlast our personal grievances. The months rolled on, and as the foundation took shape, so did our relationship. We were still working on our bond, and there were moments of tension and misunderstanding, but they were part of the journey. Slowly but surely we were rebuilding our family. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, I realized that sometimes healing comes from the most unexpected places. Though my journey had been fraught with difficulty, it led me to a renewed understanding of love, forgiveness, and the importance of family. I had fought for my place in the business, but what I had gained was so much more: a chance to reconnect with my sister, to honor my father's legacy, and to build a future filled with possibilities. Together we stood on the brink of something beautiful, united by the very challenges that had once driven us apart. In the end, we were not just business partners, we were family, and that made all the difference. Update 2. As the months passed, the foundation began to take on a life of its own. We held our first workshop, inviting local aspiring jewelry designers to participate. My sister and I worked side by side, sharing our knowledge and experiences, feeling a sense of purpose that transcended our previous conflicts. Our father attended the event, beaming with pride as he watched us mentor the next generation. The joy on his face reminded me of the importance of family and legacy, reinforcing our commitment to each other and our shared vision. The foundation grew steadily, gaining recognition within the community. We hosted exhibitions featuring the young artists' work, providing them with a platform to showcase their talents. The response was overwhelmingly positive, and with each event, I felt the bond between my sister and me strengthen. One evening, as we prepared for another exhibition, my sister turned to me, her eyes bright with excitement. "Can you believe how far we've come? I never thought we could get to this point after everything that happened." I smiled, realizing that she was right. We had transformed our pain into something beautiful, a shared journey that had brought us closer together. "I think we are just getting started," I replied. "There's so much more we can do." As the sun set on that memorable day, I took a moment to reflect on everything we had achieved. The struggles had been worth it, paving the way for a new beginning, one rooted in collaboration, understanding, and love. With our father's health stabilizing and our business thriving, we felt a renewed sense of hope for the future. The foundation not only honored our family's legacy, but also inspired us to push our boundaries and redefine success. Then came the night of our biggest event yet, a gala to raise funds for the foundation. The atmosphere was electric, filled with laughter, art, and the warmth of community. As I mingled with guests, I caught sight of my father across the room, engaged in conversation with a young artist, his eyes twinkling with pride. I turned to my sister, who stood nearby, her face lit up with joy. "We did this together," I said, feeling a swell of gratitude. "I couldn't have asked for a better partner." She smiled back, her expression a mix of determination and hope. "And we'll keep doing it together. We're unstoppable now." The evening unfolded with success beyond our expectations. As we took the stage to thank our guests, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. This was more than just an event, it was a celebration of healing, resilience, and the unbreakable bond of family. After the gala, as we closed down for the night, I found my father sitting quietly, a satisfied smile on his face. "You two have done something incredible," he said, his voice filled with pride. "You've brought life back into this family and into our business." "Thanks to you," I replied, feeling a warmth in my chest. "Your vision inspired us." With a soft chuckle, he added, "No, you both did this. You've turned challenges into opportunities. Just remember, family always comes first." Those words lingered in my mind as I drove home that night. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but we had emerged stronger, more united than ever. The foundation had become a symbol of our resilience and a testament to the power of forgiveness. In the months that followed, our family dynamic continued to flourish. We navigated life's ups and downs together, celebrating milestones and supporting each other through struggles. Each day felt like a step toward healing, a chance to create new memories that would define our future. As I stood in front of the gallery at our next exhibition, surrounded by vibrant artwork and smiling faces, I knew that we had truly found our way back to each other. Our family had weathered the storm, emerging not only intact, but also invigorated by a shared purpose. The legacy we were building was more than just about jewelry or business. It was about love, connection, and the strength we found in one another. Together we would continue to inspire others, carrying forward our family's story with pride. In that moment, I understood that life's greatest treasures were not the gems we crafted, but the relationships we nurtured. The future was bright, and with my sister by my side and my father's guiding presence, I felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. And as the last guests departed, I turned to my sister, a smile spreading across my face. "Ready for the next adventure?" "Always," she replied, her laughter ringing through the gallery, echoing the promise of new beginnings. With that we stepped into the future, hand in hand ready to write the next chapter of our family's story, a story of love, resilience, and the unbreakable bond of sisterhood.